Okay, so when I draw this out, and you don't have to draw it out, but obviously sometimes it's easier to see it than it is to visualize it without that. You've got two angles and then you've got a side. So this is not one of those ambiguous cases because that would be two sides and a non-included angle. It's the reverse. So the first thing
What do you mean when you say ambiguous case?
the one that could have two triangles.
And how do you know that?
Because that is side angle. So you have two sides and the non-included angle. Right now I have two angles and the non-included side. I have angle, side right now. That can't have the ambiguous case. So the first thing you have that you have completed is the A's. So 26.1 over the sine of angle A, which is 117.9, equals, the only other thing you have right now already is the C. So C1 over the sine of angle C, which would be 10.1. Then I'm going to cross multiply. And divide. And then just type that in the calculator. 26 sine 10.1 divided by the sine of 117.7, or sorry, 117.9. Can't read my own handwriting. And you get C1 is 5.159, so 5.16.
I put that in my calculator, but I keep getting like wrong answers.
Are you in degrees? That might be it.
Okay.
Were all of them wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably it. Yeah.
And I put it into like different things, and I was like,
It's probably what it is. So just check, make sure you're in degrees. So then you're good from there?
yeah.
Okay. All right, so 8.1 is law of cosines. Law of cosines is also used when you are finding sides or angles of oblique triangles, so not right triangles. The difference is that we use law of cosines for side, and side angle side. So when you're given those kinds of information, all three side lengths or two sides in the included angle, that's when you use law of sines. The other times you're going to use law of cosines. And again, there's no ambiguous case here. That's the good news, okay? The order matters in how you do it, but other than that, it's pretty straightforward. What is more complicated are the formulas. So for standard form, when you're finding the side, you're going to use one of these three. So if I'm looking for side A, then A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC times the cosine of A. And then I would square root it at the end. So you can even say A equals the square root of B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine A. You can put it all underneath the square root in one step. If you're looking for B, notice there's a pattern. If you're looking for B, then it's the sum of the other two minus 2 times the product of those times the cosine of the letter that matches. So if I'm looking at B, I'm trying to find B, it would be A squared plus C squared minus 2AC cosine B. And if I'm looking for C, C would equal the square root of the other twos squared and summed. So B squared plus C squared. No, sorry, A squared plus B squared. Minus 2AB cosine of C. So the pattern is you add the other two sides, you square them, and then add them. Subtract 2 times the product times the cosine of the letter that matches what we're looking for. And that's when you're given side angle side. When you're looking for an angle, when you're looking for the angle, if you're given side, then the cosine comes on the other side. So it's cosine of A equals the sum of the other two, B squared plus B squared plus C squared minus the letter that matches. So minus A squared over 2 times the first two letters, so 2 times BC. If you type that, and you can, in your calculator, all in one statement, this is super important. You have to make sure you group together your numerator and your denominator. So if I do cosine of -1 and it opens the parentheses for me, I have to open the parentheses again, do B squared plus C squared minus A squared, close the parentheses, do divided by 2BC, and then close your parentheses again. Or you can use your little fraction symbol. So those of you that have that shortcut, which is the alpha x t theta n, if you hit that button, it gives you the fraction, then you can just type in your numerator and your denominator. If you don't group it correctly, then order of operations says to do the division first. So we'll take a squared, divide it by 2, then multiply that times b, then times c, then do the addition and the subtraction. So the order of operations does not follow the original pattern. You got to make sure you force it. So if I'm doing b, I would do the cosine -1, open the parentheses, a squared plus c squared minus b squared, close the parentheses, divided by 2ac. And if I'm doing c, cosine -1, open parentheses, open them again, a squared plus b squared minus c squared, close the parentheses, divided by 2ab. Again, you could also type it in your fraction. Yeah.
Does it say 2AC in the middle one? Like in the last slide?
On the last slide.
It says find the largest angle first. It says 2AC.
Yes. And most importantly here is that if you do this in an incorrect order, you can actually create an ambiguous case that does not exist. So if you are doing law of cosines, and then you can actually switch to law of sines. If you do law of cosines, switch to law of sines because you'll have the information to switch. Then you have to pay attention to the order and you have to do the largest angle first. If you stick to law of cosines the whole time, then it doesn't matter. But if you do law of cosines and switch to sines, because you're going to see you'll have information that you can actually switch to, you have to make sure you do largest angle first. So I honestly just make it a habit to always do the largest angle first. And you'll know it's the largest angle because it's opposite the longest side. If you want to screenshot this page, you can because you're going to use these formulas a lot in the homework. So this would be a good one to make sure that you can bring back in. All right, so to solve the triangle and then round to the nearest hundredth, notice it doesn't say use law of cosines to solve the triangle. So you have to pay attention to what you're given. So then I would set up my triangle and I would say this is A, this is B, this is C. I'm given side A is 8, side B is 19, and side C is 14. I am given side, side, side. And to be honest, when I'm given side, 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 I don't usually draw it out. So you don't have to. It's pretty obvious to me when you're given all three sides, right? They're all lowercase, they're all lengths. So I don't usually draw it out. But if you want to keep doing it, you can. So the first thing, I need to find all the missing angles. I need to find angle A, I need to find angle B, and I need to find angle C. And the order is important here. So the first thing I'm going to do is find the largest angle. How do I know which one's the largest angle? Opposite the biggest side. The biggest side is 19, so the largest angle would be angle B. So angle B is what we're going to find first. I would get the cosine of B equals A squared plus C squared. So the other two letters first, minus B squared over 2, and then the first two letters. So 2AC. So I fill it in. Cosine of B would equal 8 squared plus 14 squared minus 19 squared over 2 times 8 times 14. And I'm even going to take it a step further and say cosine -1 of that whole thing. And then I'm going to do it all in one step on the calculator. Second cosine, I'm going to open my parentheses or type in your fraction. Practice this because if you don't practice the motion of the fraction with or the parentheses and then you mess it up on your test, you're going to get an error and you're not going to know why. You're going to freak out and you're not going to know why. You should get angle B is 116.8. Well, it'd be 80. So this is what my calculator looks like. In the top is if you don't have the fraction or you don't put the fraction in, you have to do cosine -1, and then it opens the parentheses. You need to open them again. 8 squared plus 14 squared minus 19 squared. Close your parentheses, divided by 2 times 8 times 14. You don't need the ending parentheses, but you need the ones at the beginning. If you have that fraction button, so remember the button that shortcut is second, and then the one that says x, t, theta, n. Some of your calculators give you that fraction. The newer ones do. So you can use that one. Or if you want to get the fraction, you go to the math menu, you scroll over to the fraction option, and then you pick n over d. So if it's easier to do the fraction, that's how you do it. Okay, for those of you that the shortcut, it might be. And then you don't have to worry about your parentheses. You just got to make sure you put the top and the top and the bottom and the bottom. Okay, so I have B, 116.80. Now notice I have both B's. I have side B and I have angle B. So I can switch to law of sines here. I tend to stick to law of cosines. 1, because I don't need to use a rounded measurement. 2, because I don't need to use a measurement that I found. If you stick to law of cosines, you will always keep the ones that are there. They're whole numbers, you know they're exact, that kind of thing. And if you do that, order doesn't matter. If I were to switch right now to law of sines, then I had to do the biggest one first. But again, if I keep law of cosines, which is what I do, people switch, but I just keep a law of cosines. Let's say I want to find A next. Then it would be cosine of A equals the other two sums, so B squared plus C squared minus A squared over 2BC. And I'm going to do cosine -1 of B, which is 8 squared, plus C, 14 squared, minus A, I did A first. B squared, which is 19 squared. C squared, which is 14 squared, and A squared, which is 8 squared, over 2 times 19 times 14. And same thing, do it all at once. Just watch your parentheses. So cosine -1, and either do the fraction or the parentheses. And I get angle A1, or actually I don't know why I said 1. A is 22.08 degrees. Now how do I find angle C? I can subtract from 180. So it would be 180 minus 22.08 minus 116.80. And I get angle C is 41.12. Now let's say I had an extra minute or even 2 minutes. Then I can also check angle C by doing cosine -1. C would be A squared plus B squared minus C squared over 2AB. So if I did cosine -1 of 8 squared plus 19 squared minus 14 squared over 2 times 8 times 19, I should end up with the same answer. I get 41.123, which matches what we got. You might be a rounded hundredth off if you've rounded along the way, but if not, it should be pretty accurate. Questions? All right, this time says solve the triangle round to nearest hundredth. Notice you're given a capital A with an angle. So I'm given an angle and 2 sides here. If I draw it out, which I would eventually do because they're all looped together. So you don't know if this is going to be law of sines or law of cosines yet. If you have one of each letter, it's side angle side. But if you don't catch that and you write it out, you'll see you've got side angle side. 2 sides and the included angle, which means law of cosines. All right, so I'm looking for angle B, I'm looking for angle C, and I'm looking for side A. Again, I can't do the angles until I have all 3 sides, so the first thing you have to find is side A. A squared would equal B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine A. So B squared is 9 squared, C squared is 12 squared minus 2 times 9 times 12 times the cosine of 25. And that equals a squared. So in my calculator, I can actually just square root that whole thing. And you don't have to worry about your parentheses this time because the natural order of operations will complete it the way it's supposed to. So second square root, 9 squared plus 12 squared minus 2 times 9 times 12 times the cosine of 25. And A equals 5.41. It'd be 0.7, which is 4.1. Again, I did that all in one step. If you want to break it apart, you totally can, but I did it all in one step. Just don't forget to square root it. If you do 9 squared plus 12 squared minus 12 times 9 times 2 times 9 times 12 times cosine 25, you have to remember to square root it after that.
So you can do cosine -1 or under the square root.
Correct. Yep. All right, now I want to find the other angles. And here I have choices. I either have both A's, so I can switch to law of sines, or I can do law of cosines. I'm going to do law of cosines just so that we can practice it, but right now, honestly, it doesn't matter. You could choose law of sines or law of cosines. So if I want to find angle B, and then it's the cosine of B equals A squared plus C squared minus B squared over 2AC. If I was doing law of sines, I would do A over sine of A equals B over sine of B, which is 5.41 over the sine of 25 equals B, which is 9 over the sine of B. In both cases, I'm using a rounded value. So it's not like one is more accurate than the other. You really get to choose from here. So if I do the law of cosines one, I'm going to do cosine -1, A squared, which is what we just found, 5.41 squared, plus C, which is 12, minus B, which is 9, over 2 times 5.41 times 12. So second cosine, 5.41 squared plus 12 squared minus 9 squared, close your parentheses, divided by 2 times 5.41 times 12. And I get angle B, 44.71. If I had finished it out using law of sines, I would have gotten 5.41 times the sine of B equals 9 times the sine of 25, and then I would have divided by 5.41. And I would get sine of B, which means the last thing I have to do is sine -1, that whole thing. 9 times sine of 25 divided by 5.41. And I get 44.67. So notice it's a little bit different. As long as your whole number matches, I would say you're okay. But this means on WebAssign, if you're 100th off, it might mark it wrong. Do not freak out. Make sure you have the work to back it, and you're fine. Now to get to angle C, I can do 180 minus 44.71 minus the angle you're originally given, which is 25. Or I could find it using law of sines or law of cosines to find angle C. So 110.29 degrees are those. Questions on that one? All right, we're going to come back to these examples on Monday. I'm going to skip to this one, which is the next area formula. So this is how you find area if you're given side, side, side. If you're given 3 sides of an oblique triangle, then the formula is called Heron's area formula. You do the square root of S times S minus A times S minus B times S minus C, where S is A plus B plus C divided by 2. So the first thing we're going to find is S, and then we're going to plug it. We are not rounding S. So if it has 0.3 digits, we're keeping the 0.3 digits. If it has 0.4 digits, we're keeping the 0.4. It will eventually terminate. Okay, but you have to keep it as its whole thing. You're not rounding. The answer will be rounded, but not the S itself. All right, so it'll look like this. Find the area of the triangle, and it says round to nearest hundredth, but again, we're not rounding S. So A is 43, B is 53, C is 72. S would equal A plus B plus C divided by 2. So 43 plus 53 plus 72 divided by 2, which is 84. If it was not a whole number, I would keep the whole decimal. Then I do the square root of 84 times 84 minus 43 times 84 minus 53 times 84 minus 72. 84 minus 43, and I take that whole thing in my calculator. 84 minus 53. 84 minus 72. So I type the whole thing in, just like that. And I get the area is 1,131 point, we're said hundredths, so 8, 9. If it gave me a unit, which I actually covered it up, so I don't know, but did I give you a unit? Yep, it would be meters squared. I don't think WebAssign is going to ask for the unit. It's not going to mark it wrong if you don't have the unit, but that's what it would be because it's area. Questions? All right, I am not going to make this homework due until Tuesday, but you have all the skills you already you need to do it. So if you know that Monday you're going to be swamped, start it over the weekend. Okay, it is on WebAssign. If you know that you're going to be swamped over the weekend and Monday's going to be more open, save it. It doesn't matter. Okay, but we will come back to this on Monday. We'll review. Your quiz on law of sines and cosines is Wednesday of next week. So we're going to finish. We're going to review Monday and Tuesday. We'll finish out law of cosines and then review. Yeah. It's okay. We'll figure it out. Yeah. I know there's a bunch of you. Well, not a bunch, but right, it's AP Bio.